Okay, guys, we should now be live in the lab. As always, I'm just going to do my kind of double checks, as I'm sure everyone is used to, everyone doing on all these lives and all these different groups. So I'm just going to go check the video, check the audio quality. But most importantly, if you are watching us, please say hello. Give us a shout out in the comments. We've got an amazing guest for this episode of Live in the Lab. My good friend David will go into a bit more detail about David shortly. But we're going to do the normal procedure. We've got some questions that you guys have been asking all week inside the lab. We've got some really amazing questions that I'm going to put to David, put him on the spot as always. And I'm sure he's going to come back with some incredible content for us. And yeah, really looking forward to it. So most importantly, guys, if you can see this, if you can hear us, interact, hit up the like buttons and put something in the chat below just so we can know. And then we'll kind of get into the whole interview and get into the good stuff. Cool. So it looks like some of you are on live. Looks like the video is good. Again, guys, if you can see us, please comment below, say hello. It's good to see who's watching. We've got an amazing guest, like I said, lined up. And we're going to get into some of your questions that you've all been asking in the lab. If you are not in the lab yet, if you're watching this as a repeat on YouTube, head on over to landingpagelab.com and you will be redirected to this amazing group. It's completely free. We have some incredible guests lined up, and we have an incredible guest on the video right now. David, I'm going to hand it over to you to do a bit of an introduction. Probably don't need it. Most people know who you are. But tell us a bit more about you, how you kind of got into this space, and exactly what you're doing right now, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, so I have been in I'll just call it the online marketing space since 2007. I started when I was in college. I got into it because of necessity. So I was looking into ways to not go broke in college like most people do. And unlike most people now, I finished all the way through. And then decided, you know what, a degree is cool, but I think I'm just going to build this business. And so I opened an agency when I was in college, started helping local clients with their advertising. I was also doing some SEO and a variety of other things because Facebook ads weren't as prominent back then. But as time went on, I started cutting off more and more services, and then I only started focusing on Facebook and then eventually Instagram when Facebook bought them. And so I've been, let's just say, full-time advertising on Facebook for the last 9 or 10 years, somewhere around that range. So I cut off most of those services as soon as I left college. I just saw what was going on with Facebook at the time and how they were evolving. And so I just wanted to start putting that more out there. Of course, it took more time for me to dial things in. It wasn't very easy to tell people why they needed to be on Facebook back then.
Right.
And I did have to, almost work a full-time job while running the agency just to make sure that I wouldn't go broke in the process. And as things started to mature and Facebook got, I had a backup plan and I used it. And so as I noticed more and more people jumping on the ad platform and the agency started making me more than that job I took on the side for a while, I went all in with the agency, and it's been the same story ever since. Now, if you look at where things are now, we're spending anywhere between $2.5 to $3 million a month consistently. That's not including the holidays. If you want to include the holidays, that could be as high as $6 to $7 million. If you have some good e-com clients, you could spend a couple million a month, right? So it really depends on what it is that you're pushing. Outside that, we do focus on YouTube as well, but Facebook and Instagram is the primary that people come to me for. That's what they know me for. That's what I've taught on for years. I don't know how many webinars I've done or free trainings or anything, but this is pretty much where I live. It's a lot. I just know that I live on this platform quite a bit. So yeah, that's how things have evolved over the last 13 years.
Amazing. Really cool story. Very similar, like working that kind of part-time job or, full-time job and doing this on the side and then flipping that, almost going full-time on this, but doing something else on the side. So you had a backup plan. I was on your podcast last week and kind of we discussed a similar setup to what I did. So it's interesting to hear you had a similar kind of intro into the industry, similar sort of timeline as well. But what made you back then, when you were kind of saying a jack of all trades, you knew SEO, different PPC marketing, Facebook, Instagram when they bought it, but what made you really focus on Facebook marketing? What was it that kind of drew you to it? Because you mentioned back then it wasn't as easy as it is now. Like not everyone knows the power of Facebook, right? Back then it was harder to get clients onto Facebook, maybe a little bit easier maybe to advertise on Facebook. But what was the decision? Why did you make that decision to focus solely on Facebook marketing as opposed to all these other things?
So I noticed that back then it was just incredibly cheap to start, right? So I was throwing in my own money to see what would happen, you know, $5, $10 at a time. $5 or $10 back then was plenty to see what would happen. And even then, I was like, wow, I could put $5 in and get clicks for 1 to 2 cents a piece in every industry that I'm in. And so I was testing this out, trying to see what would happen. And then, of course, the targeting wasn't that great back then. There was no business manager and audience insights. They were growing. They were figuring things out. So a lot of it was like blind advertising for the most part. I mean, you can select some countries and some states and cities, but it's like they didn't have a lot of interest targeting back then, and they didn't have layers and behaviors and all this other stuff. So you were sort of just like plugging it in and hoping things would work. Now, if you had a broad offer, like a weight loss offer or something, obviously I'm sure it would do well, but I wasn't working with those people back then. I wasn't working with national companies or gigantic offers like I do now. I was working with, a mom and pop shop that sells bikes and lawyers and realtors. And, so I would just basically target a whole city and just pray that it would all work. But what I saw is that in doing that, thousands upon thousands of people were seeing the ads. And so I'm like, this is going to evolve into something. As long as Facebook doesn't disappear, this is going to turn into something. Because this was at the advent of, MySpace got bought out, and they tried making an ad platform, and they had a successful one with people who were doing CPA offers. And when you tried to do it with something like a local business, it would bomb. Like it just wouldn't do so well. And so I found that to be interesting. I'm like, MySpace is already on the decline. If anything, it was already dead at that time. And then Facebook was on the rise. And I was in college, which is perfect because that's who the crowd was for the most part in the beginning. So I'm like, okay, this is something. If it doesn't turn into something now, it'll turn into something later as long as they could stay active. Right. And of course, Zuckerberg and crew made it what it is today, and they grew it over time. But even then, Twitter opened up their platform a couple years later, and LinkedIn, and like all these platforms that people are considering new, they've been around for a long time. Like YouTube's ad platform itself has been around almost 10 years. AdWords has been around even longer before it was called AdWords. It was just Google PPC. So a lot of these platforms were around, and I tested them. I just didn't understand them as clearly as I did as Facebook when I jumped in. So I was like, I'm going to stick with this. Please don't die on me. And as long as this thing stays around, I can make it work. And I did. I just kept putting more and more money into it. Of course, the SEO side at the time was the hottest thing. Google, Google Maps or Google Places as it was back then. And, just trying to rank people because that's what was paying the bills. And then I would take a small portion of what was being made and just test some stuff and hope that maybe I'd figure something out that no one else has figured out. And I can go back to my clients and be like, hey, give me $100 and let me show you what I can do with this. Right. And that's essentially what I was doing. I'd make $750, $1,500 per contract back then, which to me was a lot of money. And then I would take, $75 to $100 per person and just start testing things. And that was coming out of my pocket because that would usually be the money I'd keep for myself. Instead, I was just testing things. So, that was me trying to figure things out back when I thought maybe I was trying to be clever. And then, of course, 2012, 2013 came around, and I started to see a lot more people jump on. People still didn't understand what was going on. And then that's when I started noticing people making millions of dollars with Facebook ads. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess the market's adapted. Maybe I need to figure out who are the ones that actually want this the most. And that's when I realized I had them in front of me the whole time. I knew a bunch of people doing webinars back then and application funnels before they were application funnels. I knew about this stuff, but I was blind to it. I didn't realize that my friends who were doing affiliate webinars with these funnels had no idea what Facebook ads were. So all I had to do was just bring it to them. And next thing you know, I went from having 5 to 7 clients to like 20 in a year. Just boom, all of a sudden go to 20 with 2 people on my team, and I'm still running everything. But I had a couple people on my team, and I'm going, man, like this is turning into something. And then that's when it really started to take off from there.
Amazing. So you went from having these kind of local businesses You mentioned kind of
Yep.
6 or 7 clients that you were doing kind of broad stuff on with Facebook, to then realizing that, you know, a couple of your peers or people you were connected with in the affiliate space were doing affiliate funnels, webinars, but they
Yep.
didn't have the Facebook traffic. So you kind of approached them and said, hey, look, let's try this Facebook thing on your affiliate offer and see if we can scale this. And then you went from sort of 7 to 20 clients overnight. And were those your kind of first high spending clients as such? You know, could you really scale the affiliate side? Because I guess they're online businesses, right? They're not, you don't have a physical product. You don't have an offline shop or store. You're not doing lead gen. You're doing direct to consumer purchase of a product. It's all online. It's digital. So you can see like what I put in is what I get out. Let's scale it.
So the reason why I went with the all online audience, or in this case, if you want to classify them, a lot of biz op people at the time, was not because the rules were more lax or that the compliance wasn't a problem. That's not why. It's because that was the majority of my network. And when I went to the affiliates that I knew were doing webinars with each other, back when ClickFunnels wasn't even around, okay? If everything was go to webinar, and if you wanted to do a replay, you just gave them a video and said, go watch the replay, right? There was no auto webinar stuff. If anything, the only platform back then was Evergreen Business Webinar or something like that, which was the original thing that Phil Same created before it turned into EverWebinar with Andy Jenkins and crew, right? So it's like, I remember that process. It was a huge pain in the butt to get to work. But the thing is that I knew this crew was making money because they would post about it. Everyone was bragging, oh, I did 100K on this webinar. I did blah, blah, blah. So I automatically knew that if I said, hey, let's take this webinar. You're doing 50-50 split. Cool. You made 50K. Let's take 10 of that and just run some ads. And if it doesn't work, we'll stop. If it works, we'll keep it going. And I remember I did this with one person. I'm not going to name who it is. He still runs webinars to this day. But he was the first person who gave me this shot. He was still is a big time affiliate webinar guy. And I was like, just give me 10K. And of course, he's like, that's a lot. I'm like, how about this? It's 10K as in 2,500 per webinar. Just let me run this 4 times. If we get 2 out of 4 right, you're still going to be profitable. Trust me on that. If we can get 3 out of 4 to work, we're going to do great. If I can get all of them to work, you're going to love me.
Yeah.
Just so you know, the guys worked with me for 8 years now. So I have still works with me to this day. So we ran the webinar. It was the same webinar he ran the week before. And he's like, I don't know. Every time I do this, it bombs. I'm like, trust me. Run the same exact webinar. Give me your audiences. This is back when custom audiences were like brand new, you know, so you were like able to load your list and all this stuff. So I loaded his list. I'm like, I know most of your list didn't show up. So let's run some ads to them. Let's warm up the ads a little bit. And then let me run some cold traffic. So we'll run it to just basic interest and see what happens. And all of a sudden he's like, man, how did you get an extra 1,000 people to register for my webinar? And I'm like, I only had $2,500. So I was getting, you know, basically $250 a person. It was literally on the dot. It was like 1,000. It was like 1,001 people, right? He was just like, what the hell is going on here? And this is when ads would get shared like crazy. I mean, we're talking just a basic stock photo ad, you know, sign up for this week's webinar. It would get shared like 300 times. So I'm like, all right. And he was freaking out. He's like, I can't believe this. I'm like, well, don't freak out yet because we have to make sure it works. Does the webinar. And of course, he has one of the big webinar packages, 1,000 people could show up. And he ran this webinar and he goes, dude, I had 300 people I couldn't bring into the door. Like they were locked out. They couldn't get in. I have to do an encore the next day because I have people who are yelling at me that they can't get in. That sequence, which ran about 4 days, so from Thursday through Sunday, he made off of that $2,500 spend, because all he did was mail his list like 2-3 times, and the rest was all ads. He made $140,000. And he goes, I did an affiliate webinar where I just split in half. I made 100. I run ads with you, and I make 140. And even though I still have to share with the guy because it's his offer, and he was there too, he's like, we made an extra 40 off of $2,500. How much more can we put into this thing? And that was the beginning of let me run more ads. Now, here's the funny thing. This is before I started doing my I don't know if you want to call them famous case studies, but the thing that got me in front of a lot of people were my case studies. I used him as my case study, which was about the whole webinar. I basically did like a whole year. I was like, we did webinars every week, almost the whole year. I think it was like 46 webinars in the year. So you only took 6 weeks off. Yeah. And I put up the numbers and I broke it down and I said, this is how many webinars we ran. Here's how much ad spend we had, the whole deal. Basically got the guy 100,000 plus people on his list off ads only, right? Just like all this other stuff. And that was the beginning of other marketers going, can you do this for me too? Because I also run affiliate webinars. And here's the great thing about that. I had a list of all the webinars that crushed it. So when someone came to me and said, oh, I want to run an offer with this guy, I'm like, no problem. I've already run that 5 times. I know exactly what the target. I know that. Yeah. So it was almost like a rinse and repeat. Now, here's the caveat to that for everyone who's like, I could do that now. I got lazy because it was super easy to just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. It only works for so long. Now you have to have differentiation between who's promoting the webinar, right? So like what I put out there has to be different from, Ron or Ricky or whomever. Like they all have to have different messaging. If it's always the same, at some point people get the hint, especially if the presenter is always the same person.
Right.
So at some point, like that worked for a couple of years, actually, just that same process over and over. But then that's when compliance got tighter. That's when a lot of people were running the same webinars 10 times. That's when targeting got stricter. So it's like over time, it evolved. So I had to change the strategy.
Yeah,
hey, more video, more this.
Have to get a bit more clever.
Exactly. But it gave me a starting point. It also catapulted my agency in a very short period of time during a time where people were not that interested in running webinars. It's too hard. I don't understand the tech. It's too long. It's 3 hours. Remember, webinars were like a standard webinar used to be an hour and a half to 2 hours. Yeah. And that was the baseline. We're not talking about Q&A yet. Q&A could have made it 3 hours. Now, if you get to an hour-long webinar, it's too long. Come on now. I used to do 3-hour webinars, right? So I look at how things have evolved. Of course, shorter time span of people now. But the process is very similar. It's just you got to get on camera, build more of a brand personality with people.
Right.
And the targeting is just stricter, so you got to get creative with how you target, but that was the thing that literally the business went like that. It was like a hockey stick, just out of nowhere. And people were like, where did you come from? I'm like, I've been here the whole time. It's just, all it took was a couple people to say my name. And then it was like, bam, hey, can you do this for me? Bam, can you do this for me? And it was constant. That's when I got the double-digit clients.
Nice as well, because like you say, because the clients that you're running ads for have a following because people are watching their webinars and they have all this following, and then people want to do what they're doing. Who do we use? Well, I use David. Okay, cool, let's go.
And they told the product owner, and the product owner's like, "Can you do it for me too?"
Yep.
Like, so it just ripple effect.
Nice.
Yep.
Amazing. Very cool story. So, do you still run lots of webinar kind of ads, or are you more kind of on the e-com side now as well?
I don't want to date this because we never know if this is going to be viewed a year from now. Right. But during this time of the year, let's do a 6-month comparison. Let's do 6 months prior to quarantine and 6 months after, right? Almost 6 months after. If you look at it, prior to quarantine, a lot of people were still running webinars, a lot of auto webinars, a lot of webinars to application, or even just webinar direct to sale. And they still do now, but it's different. And so prior to the quarantine, webinars were starting to decline a little bit. Just a little bit. People weren't watching them nearly as much. People just wanted to see the offer immediately. Like there were no games. People just like, show me the thing already. Just please show me the thing, right? And that's fine, because if whatever it is that thing is great, people were going to buy it anyway. But what we found is the attention span of these people were just a lot less. So you'd have to get to your offer at like minute 30, 35 instead of minute 50.
Yeah.
So a lot of webinars got shorter. If you look at it to when the quarantine began to now, for the most part, in the first couple months of quarantine, people were watching things all the way through. Because there's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
They have the time. Yeah. So it almost had this like mini resurgence of the webinar, in a sense that if you were doing an affiliate promotion, if you were promoting your own product, people were actually going to pay attention because, hey, they need to make more money. They need to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that X, Y, and Z is. And so they naturally were consuming this information. So running ads to webinars did amazing from March to May. Then there was like a small dip, but webinars are still doing great. Yeah. Here's the thing that's doing phenomenal, though. The application funnel is doing phenomenal right now because everyone's home. Everyone's answering their phone. Everyone's talking on the phone or Zoom.
So talk us through your typical
and so because of that, application funnel. Say that again.
Talk us through your typical application funnel. What does that look like for someone who's kind of viewing who isn't aware with how that funnel looks? That would be amazing.
It's a very short funnel. So You can do this multiple ways. You can go direct to a video sales letter that has a button to an application. There's actually quite a few people who are doing that. No opt-in at all. Just get me the application, right? If your VSL is strong, if your video is strong, like, you can do that. Most people, though, they'll get an opt-in, send them to a VSL, application, thank you page. So 3 to 4 pages max, right? Now, with the opt-in, they might be doing a case study. Like in my case, I'd do a case study, right? I'd probably do like multiple case studies, rotate them to see the one that grabs the most attention. And then whenever they download the item, I'll throw in the extra case studies anyway, right? So it's like I would do 3. I'd use them all each as like a lead magnet on the front, but they're going to get all 3 anyway, right?
But they're all going to get all 3, yeah.
They're going to get all 3 anyway. But I would use a case study because it leads them with the result. A lot of these application funnels, they just want to have a result. What is it you're going to help the person achieve? So in this case, right, I'm going to help you double your business. I'm going to help you generate 25% more calls. I'm going to help you get more patients to your office, whatever it is. A lot of people using application funnels aren't necessarily selling coaching. That used to be the case. A lot of people just sell coaching with application funnels. Right now, you could sell services. You could do coaching. You could sell a hybrid of a product and a service. It could be software with education. Like, there's all sorts of ways you can bundle these things together. And you know this because you've done it as well. But the reason why we're seeing it work so well is just because of the fact that everyone's home. And they don't have to sit there and wait an hour to be pitched. You can get on the phone, and within 30 minutes, they're interested. So we're finding that, yes, more people are consuming information, right? They'll opt in a lot quicker. And so the lead cost has gone down. Even this month so far, we're seeing our CPMs are drastically lower, thanks to the corporate boycotts. And our CTRs are higher again. It's almost as if people are clicking more aggressively now. So we're seeing that. I wouldn't call it a resurgence of what it was in the first couple months of quarantine, but we're still seeing a lot of people responsive to the application funnels. And webinars we're going to see in the next couple months if they have a resurgence too, because they start to dip again. States reopening and people are like, hey, I don't have to be at home anymore. So that has changed the dynamic. Exactly. So we're obviously preparing for round 2.
But no, it's fascinating. It's really, really amazing insight. Really appreciate it. Which leads us to our first question, if that's okay, because someone has actually asked what particular products have you seen flourish in the current pandemic? So what have you seen? We talked about webinars, application funnels. Aside from that, I know you have a wide range of customers and selling a wide range of services and softwares and products, whatever that may be. What have you personally seen at your agency do really well during this pandemic?
Yeah, so we've seen anything how-to has done really well. How to start a business, how to start an e-com store, how to become a better realtor, how to sell more insurance plans. All these how-tos of existing things that have obviously taken a hit during this time. Realtors can't sell as many houses, so how do I get them more qualified people? And insurance agents, they might have had a slowdown in the beginning, so they need to sell more healthcare plans, life insurance plans, whatever it may be. So all these how-tos, especially with how to start a side hustle, kills it right now. People just want to make an extra $500 to $1,000 a month, not even a day, not a week, a month. That's it. So imagine the way that we framed it on a webinar was double your stimulus check. We did that as a test just to see what happened because we knew the stimulus checks were $2,000. We figured, hey, how do we get you an extra $2,000? Oh my Lord, that headline was insane. People were, well, first off, we had some people go, that's BS, you shouldn't do that. And the other side was like, that was very clever, you got my attention, I will show up, right? So a lot of it was more based upon how could we help you just add a little extra, right? So these how-tos were all about adding something, not doubling, tripling, quadrupling, something. Because right now, I think people are just looking for that little extra something, right? They know it's difficult to double or triple a business right now, and there's plenty of people who are. But what if I could just help you make an extra $1,000, right? Now let's take it a step further. I'm an advertiser. I could easily go out there right now and be like, I've helped tons of people triple their businesses since the quarantine. I have helped a lot of people do very well since the quarantine. But it's very different when I can say my track record's been doing this for over 10 years.
Right.
That way, at least I'm not looking like an asshole when I'm trying to promote something this year. So instead
Yes.
of the how to, instead of it always being how to, being the performer, it's also, I talk about consistent growth. So when I am trying to help somebody or have them come in as part of my agency services, I'm not talking about profiting off of a pandemic. I'm talking about how do we build this consistently so that when this happens to be over, your business doesn't crash because no one cares anymore. Right? So what I'm finding is you have the curiosity angle of like make money during this whole situation, but the ones that have the best type of customers coming in are the ones that are about, let me help you build sustainability and consistency
Right.
regardless of what's going on in the world.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily about what is selling, like, oh, everything Shopify is doing well. No, no, no. It doesn't matter the subject. I could talk about Etsy. I could talk about Pinterest. I could talk about Twitter. All the platforms that people aren't talking about that are making lots of money, but people aren't listening to. We could be talking about those and making just as much money if you talk about consistency, sustainability, and growth versus quick hits. Because right now, quick hits are making
Mm.
money. Let's talk about this again in September, October, when, if God forbid this happens again and people are having to spend money that they were given, they're not going to spend it on your course. They're going to spend it on Christmas gifts because we're going to
Right.
be in the holiday season.
Right.
So what's gonna give you some consistency of your own for an offer later in the year? Well, if you start talking about consistency and sustainability now, it's going to continue to work later in the year, especially when you can say how to make sure your offer works even during a time where no one would be buying your offer. Usually digital offers are a little slow in November, December, historically. But you might be one of the few that it actually starts to
Mm.
work if you start talking about
Right.
consistency, right? So I hope that answers the question. If you want specific things, BizOp is going to still work. Okay, everyone wants to make extra money. You got a BizOp offer, great. You're going to kill it. Lucky, awesome. But your time is coming. You'll have a round two. You'll make more money again. But then when a real crash happens or a real recession or whatever happens, no one's going to buy your thing unless it's $97. So if you want to make your $1,000 here and $500 there, do it now. Don't wait. Do it right now because now is the time to make the money with that.
Makes sense. On the ad side, the next question, someone said, have you had to change or adapt anything on the ad setup during COVID? I know you just mentioned about the whole boycott, cheaper CPMs, seeing CTR go up this week. Like, have you had to change your strategy as far as buying media on Facebook? Is there anything you're doing during the pandemic that's obvious, or is it just business as normal? Let's test the algorithm, see what hits, and ramp up spend.
Yes. So CBO versus ABO. ABO, ad set budget optimization. CBO, campaign budget optimization. I was a huge just supporter of CBO last year when they're like, we're going to fully transition. I'm like, great. I've been killing it with CBO. This transition's cake. And then one day they come out and they're like, we're going to leave everything alone. And of course I'm like, God damn it. Like I've been learning this thing to a T and killing it with this and being like CBO. And don't get me wrong, I was still testing ABO, but it was like 20% of the time. Here's what's changed in the last couple months. I'm doing 50-50 splits now between both campaign styles. Now my setups are the same, meaning I might have the same amount of ad sets in one, and like CBOs, I don't want to put personally, I don't put more than 8 ad sets in there. I know the rule of thumb is 4 to 6. I do no more than 8 if they're similar size audiences, like all lookalike 1%. So I have no problem shoving them into one campaign. But when you're doing ABO, you could set up a campaign with 100 ad sets in there because each one has its own individual budget. So the one thing that has changed is when I do large budgets, large budget ad sets or campaigns, I usually am doing that with stuff I know is already working. So if I have 2 or 3 ads that are working, I'll actually put them all in one ad set because I know they already work, right? So I'll let the winners compete against each other. But I'll also create campaigns where it's like this one campaign with all these ad sets is only one winner. So I'll call it winner 1, and then I'll do another one, winner 2, another one, winner 3. That's what CBOs. And I'll do the same thing with an ABO, right? So it's all the ad sets, winner 1, winner 2, winner 3. And it seems simple, but here's the thing. I also do the bundle version of that. So I'll do a campaign, all the ad sets, and all the winners in an ad set for every single ad set. And I'll run it as a CBO and an ABO. And I know some people are going to think like, isn't that like duplicating or like overlapping a lot? Funny enough, Facebook's never that consistent. So when you try out these different setups, sometimes your bundle setup is outperforming your single setup. And sometimes some of those single setups, meaning a couple of those ad sets, are just crushing it, whereas others are not, even though they're all winners. And then you look at some of the bundle, and some of the bundles are doing great. So what you're really trying to do is what I call an ad stack. I've been calling it this for over 10 years. You're stacking winners. You're stacking all variations onto each other. You don't need to have an account spending 5K a day with all the same setup. I have accounts spending 5K a day with all these varying setups between CBO and ABO that just total up to 5K. Now, do you have to go through this testing process to eventually get there? Of course. There's no one way that's going to work. But it takes time, and once you get to that point, like imagine over 30 days I just build these setups. Yeah, maybe my ROAS isn't where I want it to be. Maybe it's not a 3.0 and it's a 2.1. By the end of the month, when I've done all this testing, the following month, we're just going to be killing it all the way up because everything that's working is going to keep working running into the next month. And so we know what our benchmarks are with the clients that we work with in our own offers. And we just make sure as long as we can hit those benchmarks, the low benchmark where we're still profitable, doing all these tests, that in the following month, it's just going to take off. And we'll do this over and over and over until accounts are literally just stacked with winners. We even have some accounts that we split off where we have like one account's a test account and the other one's a winner account. So we'll take all the winners and just move them to one account and just be like, blast them, just go. These are all the winning ads we've ever had in this account. Let's just run everything over there with winners only. And let's go crazy with testing over here, right? But that's when you're spending a lot of money. Like the CPA guys who spend thousands upon thousands a day, they're probably already doing that. But when you're talking about the agency types, not many are doing that. Everything's in one account, right? Mm-hmm. So our setups have evolved, but they're also more aggressive than they used to be because everyone looked at CBO as a set and forget, and that's it. And I take over way too many accounts where people have been burned because someone set up a CBO and didn't look at it for 30 days or for 3 weeks or for 2 weeks. You still got to check them. I check them every day. My team checks it 3 times a day, even for a campaign that might spend $50 a day, because there's going to be things in there that'll tell you that, hey, maybe this ad needs to be turned off. Maybe this audience isn't responsive. So, that's what's changed. Our campaign structures are very similar with a CBO, 4 to 8 ad sets. With an ABO, we'll just shove everything in there. It's just management of ads at that point. But what we're really looking for is just stacking winners. And we do the duplication method. We find winner, duplicate. We find winner, duplicate. A lot of people like to add budget. That's cool. Our duplication method is very consistent. Remember, that's the name of the game for us.
That's really interesting because there's so many conflicting messages about scaling your ads, and that's a question we've got. So it'd be interesting to go into that in a little bit more detail. You say you go to the duplication method as opposed to just upping the spend. Someone's asked, how do you go from that 1K a day to 10K a day spend? Is that how you would advise to do it? You would just duplicate your winning ads?
Well, so the broader the offer, the more you can vertically spend. Vertically spend being adding to budget.
Yep.
When the offer isn't that broad. So if it's not BizOp is broad, weight loss is broad, right? Like those types of things are broad. Yep. Make money in general is broad. But what if I'm talking about how to get more leads as a realtor? There's only so much vertical you can do there. Sometimes accounts might cap at 3K a day before things stop breaking. So you have to come up with other offers and things of that nature. So I look at horizontal scaling as the duplication of things that are working. I'm not changing budgets. The budgets is increasing by duplication. The other way of horizontally scaling is adding more offers, right? So imagine instead of just adding more offers in one account, it's offer 1s in this account, offer 2s in this account, offer 3s over there. And if I can get to the point where each offer is converting at 2K a day, I'm now spending 6K a day, right? So it's still horizontal because it's multiple accounts, budgets split amongst accounts versus vertical. But the whole goal is that you basically get this triangle effect, right? You have the horizontal and then everything increases. Boom, everything starts to go up. And then naturally everything looks awesome, right? That's the goal. Everyone wants that. I want to spend 10K a day, make 40, right? I know a lot of people who are even spending 10K a day, making 15,000, and they're like, I'm still happy because the leads that are coming in, we got email and a variety of other things, right? So it's just a matter of what's your plan. But I like to do the horizontal method of duplication because I already know what budgets things work at. So at CBO, a lot of our ads do well between 200 to 300 is very consistent for us. on a campaign budget level. 500 does work too, but it's not as consistent. Sometimes we've put 1,000 and it looks great for 2 days, and then in the third day it bombs, and we've just killed all of our ROAS for 2 days. So we know that 200-300 is consistent, 500 as well.
That's
so we do a lot of $200, $300, and $500 setups, right? And by duplicating, we already know how it needs to act. And if we duplicate that same campaign 3 times and the audience is 5 million people, we're not overlapping. We're not. There's still tons of people in there for us to work with, right? So we look at these things, and that's how we're scaling. We do a lot of duplication. Some of the accounts we have, you'll see, it's like 4 campaigns with a control, and we've duplicated each of those over time, 3 or 4 times. Next thing you know, we have 16 campaigns running at 300 a day, and we're already at a point where we're almost at 5,000.
One campaign at 5,000 a day, which isn't going to work.
Well, it can. Some people, it does, right?
Can, but that's where your sweet spot you found is that kind of 300 mark. So you'd much rather duplicate campaigns than scaling it up, and and
it's better management for us, because what if out of those 16 campaigns, 12 are producing profitably and 4 are not? We could just turn off those 4, right? And then if one day they all crash, there's still going to be a couple that are performing. Very rarely do we have all the campaigns crash. It's usually something where it's like, I'll just use a simple number. Out of 10, 2 or 3 might crash on one day, but we don't pull the trigger so quickly to just turn things off if historically something's done well for at least 48 to 72 hours. So we keep looking at things over a 2 to 3 day period. And if we notice that there's a 3-day stretch where it's dead, turn it off, right? So we just keep going through this process over and over and over until it gets to the point where it's consistent. And it just continues to go that way so that we don't have any issues. And then naturally, we would hope that it stays at that high level spend, that the client is still seeing a profitability number that makes them happy.
Makes sense. Some really gold nuggets in there. Appreciate it. Love it. Moving on to more kind of conversion questions. Obviously, we are inside the landing page lab. If you are not a member, go to landingpagelab.com. But talking about kind of conversion rates, landing pages, let's dive into a little bit more on the funnel and landing page side. So you mentioned you have obviously quite a few webinar clients who are doing kind of work from home, biz op offers, physical products on the e-com side, other sides. What typically do you see converts well when it comes to funnels and landing pages? Is there, for you as an agency running multiple different types of offers, is there a kind of one size fits all, or I think I know the answer to this, or does it kind of depend exactly what you're promoting to how the funnel's set up, the landing page? What kind of things do you do on that side?
I don't believe there's a one size fits all, because I mean, I have some clients that run both funnel, like they run a webinar and an application funnel. And it might just be that over time they find that one set of audiences perform better with one funnel versus the other. But they have both running, because then they're able to double their efforts. And so oftentimes with digital people, at least, they might start with the style of funnel that works best for them, that they're comfortable with, right? So if they've done lots of webinars, they start with a webinar. If they like doing things over the phone, they might start with an application funnel. But then they might do a webinar with an application, create like a hybrid. Or they might take their webinar and turn it into a 4-day sequence by chunking it down, right? And then eventually get to an application. So I believe it's more based upon your comfort level and how much you're willing to test with an ad budget. Because when you're doing something like a webinar, you have to spend, let's just say $3 to $5K and wait and hope that the webinar you do, if it's live, converts to at least break even or higher. If you're doing it in an auto webinar, I always tell people, if you don't have 300 people show up, not register, watch the webinar.
Show up on the webinar, yeah.
You don't really know what's going on yet. And even with auto webinars, let's just say 50% of your signups show up. So it's 600 people you need to sign up to get 300 to show up. What if those 600 cost you $10 a piece? You just spent $6,000 and only 300 people are showing up. You got to hope that out of those 300, enough people buy your item. If it's $1,000, you got to get at least 6 people to buy, so you break even out of those 300. Now, it might not seem like a lot, but what if a lot of people drop off on your webinar at the 20-minute mark and your pitch is at 35 minutes, right? So you could see there's a lot of variables here. And the reason why someone like me, for example, might start with an application funnel is because I know I only need to talk to 10 people, and I'll close at least one personally.
Mhm.
at least if I'm having a bad week. And that offer could be 3K. And I know it's not going to cost me 3K to get 10 people. It's not going to
Right.
cost me $300 per application. It might cost me 150, and then maybe only 60% show up to the call. But I don't need a bunch of people in order to make sure I get my money back from
Mm.
those efforts.
Mm.
Right? So that's because I know the math on that side of side of things. Now, if I'm willing to be consistently churning out registrants and seeing how the webinar performs and everything like that, that becomes almost a offer that you can completely walk away from, meaning like I just got to put money in, people got to register, and if they buy my product, they buy my product. If it's lower ticket, even if it's $14.97 or less, you could still run an auto webinar and not have to worry about anything other than how are the ads performing. That's
Right.
everyone's dream, right? So in order to get to that point, it just requires more money to dial in. Once you dial it in, it's very hands off. Application funnel, there's hands on to it because you got salespeople or
You need a sales
yourself
team.
and
Yep.
all that. It might make more money up front, but in the long term, it's whether or not you want to deal with all that,
Yes.
right? So you could see where there's balance between both.
Yeah. No, makes complete sense. Do you out of interest, have you ever just tried straight up sales pages? Have you ever just gone straight to a direct response, direct to consumer sales page to sell the product instead of
Yeah.
pre-selling them on a webinar or funnel? What were the
I
results?
usually do that with product that's about $200 or less, usually. Even right now, for example, one of my best clients, surprisingly, sells a $97 product straight to
Yep.
sales page.
Yep.
And every day we're averaging about $50 a sale on a $97 product on the front end. That's not including the bump. That's not including OTOs or anything. He's making good money per sale on the front. And all we have to do is just send traffic to the sales page. And what's very interesting is that in the beginning, that the numbers weren't like that in the beginning. The number was, it was like $93 a sale for a $97 sale, but he was still making money because of the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Now that things are dialed in, it's like we're basically almost doubling our money every time we run ads on the front end, and then everything's just even more. And so
what
that
does
stuff
that
is
land? Sorry to interrupt. What does that landing page look like? I'm not after you sharing or showing us the actual page, but is it high? Is it lots of content? Is it long form content? Is it a video plus short form? What's the structure and layout of that page? Because obviously we're in the lab. People want to know about landing pages as well.
Of course. It's not a super long landing page, so it's not like those old school tons of copy landing page. What it is primarily examples and testimonials. So you know what space it's in. It's in the photography space. Okay. It's a course around like lighting, and then there's also like an editing component to it, right? So the video is more of like a highlight reel, and it's very fast and quick, and it's like before, after lighting and all this type of stuff, right? And the video no more than a minute and 30 seconds. That's how long the VSL is. It's basically just like, do you want videos that look like this? And it's like bam, 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 bam. It's like Hollywood style, right? It's all up in your face. And I'm like, this is perfect, because who watches a 5-minute trailer? But you will watch a 1.5-minute trailer, right? 100%. So let's make it cinematic.
Right.
And that's the video. And from there, what you see is, 3 testimonials, written style with 5-star, right? So
social proof.
That's that right below. And then right below that is what's in the course. What is in? There's nothing about the guy or anything. He goes right into, this is what's in it. Here's the modules. He breaks down the modules. And then below the modules, he says why you should trust me.
Right.
And then that's when he talks about
Okay,
himself.
that's clever.
And he talks about, like, I've been doing this for X amount of years, and this is what I do. And he actually showed some examples of the differences in lighting of pictures he's done, and lighting of videos and things like that. And then below that again is a bunch of testimonials. This time we do video testimonials.
Yep, perfect.
And then below that is the call to action. It's a very short page, but it looks long because we fill it with proof.
Right.
Lots of proof.
It's amazing, because everything you've kind of said is everything we preach. Like, as far as you've just explained, like the whole ADA principle, it's attention above the fold with that quick video. You get their attention. You've got some social proof reviews. Then you go into the interest section where you pique their interest by showing them exactly what's in their course. Then it's that kind of desire with the social proof of the guy, of who he is, and the video reviews, and then it's bang, action. How can I buy this product? So it's perfect. It sounds, no wonder it's doing good, right?
Yeah, and we had different variations that were even shorter, some that were longer, and I told him, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, when it comes to this type of subject matter, People just want to see that you've done this, and they want to also see results from people who've done it too. And because it's photography and videography as well, I'm like, all you have to do is just have your clients talk about their experience. It was an easy course. I went through it in X amount of time. And once I did it, my clients that I did these videos and photos for were whatever they were feeling, right? Some were extremely happy. Some were like, this is the best I've ever seen, that sort of thing. And I'm like, keep it short, keep it to the point. Even tell your clients who do these testimonials for you, do it in less than a minute.
Yep.
Please, just keep it short.
Shoot it on your iPhone. And the more authentic, the better.
Keep it simple. And the more he did that, the more I was like, we have the formula. Because now we need to do this for ads too. Keep the ads short. Showcase what exactly you're teaching without saying this is in the course too, right? Just put it out there. And then naturally, everything started to perform. It took us a while. I think it took about 2 or 3 months to dial in the offer. We were just spending money to the page. But we built such a huge retargeting audience that by the time we figured this out and I turned on retargeting the right way, that's when I was like, oh my God, the retargeting is converting at $30 a sale on a $97 product. Then I'm like, let me go back and do US and Canada. Let me just send them straight to the page. Oh my God, that's $50.
Yeah.
What happens if we go worldwide? By the way, the moment we went worldwide was when his business went crazy. Okay. I mean, this one $97 offer made him over $1 million. Okay.
Wow.
And he has other offers, but this one thing made him over $1 million. And we have a buyer's list that's in the tens of thousands, not a lead list, a buyer's list. Right. So naturally,
similar products, similar offerings, similar courses. And
now we have almost like a suite. It's like a lighting, the editing, that you name all the different things. I'm blanking on them, but it's like there's like 5 other offers. And then if you want the whole suite, it's like a mastery course.
Right.
And if you want the mastery, you got to pay. Right. And that you'd be surprised. Some people buy 2 or 3 courses and then they're like, I just want the bundle. Just give me the bundle. And it's like, hey, but 3 of those courses are, no, it doesn't matter. Give me the whole bundle. And then
which
naturally
leads me to our next question we've got asked. You keep teeing them up for me. I'm smacking them out, so I love it. So we're talking about bundles earlier. You mentioned about upsells. Someone has asked, what do you see as the most consistent? And we know inside the lab, and we know as marketers, there's all different types of upsells, cross sells, order bumps, expedited shipping. I mean, it's a bit different if you're doing digital. But what are you consistently seeing as the highest performing kind of upsell, cross sell bumps in your funnels?
Yeah, so like for I'll just talk about bumps first. So with bumps, let's say with like that $97 offer, we have a bump where it's like there's templates.
Yes.
People love templates.
Done for you kind of thing.
So if I was selling, just plug and go type of thing. So if we're talking about advertising as an example, if I gave you my templates to create ads in less than 10 minutes, imagery or ad copy and all that, people would buy them. And if the bump is like $20, they're going to take it, right? So just all it does is increase the order value. So we do little bumps like that. And it's always template based, right? And we throw it in that. If we were doing a book funnel, our bump is always, hey, you're getting the physical book. Do you also want the audio? And then on top of that, would you also like a workbook that goes along with it, right? So there's 2 different bumps, right? Workbook might be $15 and the audio might be $10, right? Or something along those lines. Or you could bundle them together and be like, hey, do you want the audio and the workbook? And you could say it's $20 bundle, right? So we throw that in as the bumps. Now for OTOs, we like to create things that are complementary. So for example, with a lighting course, your complementary thing might be primarily in the lighting course, it's about photos. A lot of people are just focusing on photos. The OTO is, how would you like to improve your lighting in your video? And then use the video and photography simultaneously, where you can actually turn the audio, the videos into something from your photos. Like you can mesh them all together and have like the perfect situation where your clients have both photo and video instead of just photo, and you could surprise them and charge more and all this other stuff, right? So it's almost like in his case, it was a hybrid of learn how to do this with photo and video, but then let me also show you how you can use this to make more money with your clients.
Right.
So it's complementary.
And everyone wants to make more money.
Together, boom, and you can make more money. But when you look at it beyond that point, like we don't have 3 or 4 OTOs like a marketer usually would, because in other markets, you flood them with too many things, they're never going to go through it. So we just simply want them to go through it, because how else would they get to the bundle? Most of these people that we're selling to in the videography, photography space, you show them one thing that does well, they will eventually buy, your other stuff.
So
So we don't want to flood them.
bundle on the back end of the funnel as opposed to on the front end.
Correct. We want to give them some time, because we find that the ones that often go through the course and say they love it will eventually buy the bundle anyway. It doesn't cost us anything to tell them about it, right? They're already on the list. They already bought something. Now, we don't do that until at least, I think it's like 10 days later. We don't start talking about the bundle until 10 days. By email, yep. Okay. We wait. And the great thing is my client tracks when people log in, where they've gone through, like all that sort of thing. So we know that as long as people have gone 50% of the way through, they have a higher chance of buying the bundle, right? Because they have already seen a fair amount of the content. Right. Now, if we talk about, let's say, like the real estate space, real estate's interesting. You could sell low ticket stuff all day in real estate, but then the moment you're like, hey, it's $2,000 for coaching, you're going to get every red flag in the book from these people. I don't know, I've been screwed before, but cool, got it. So when you're selling lower ticket things to them, they actually like memberships a lot. You know, if I could pay $200 a month to learn from the best real estate investor that I know, I'm more appreciative of that than if I just buy a $5,000 coaching. And I know this because I have a client right now that has over 3,000 members paying, you know, $200 a month for his coaching. And he talks about all different types of real estate investing: turnkey, wholesale, co-wholesale, how to do all this online, how to do it in person, like all these different things. And he's bringing in experts and his own students and all this stuff. And he has multiple coaches. So instead of turning it into a $5K per person operation, it's $200 a month, and you're getting a $5K operation. But it's because they have to do it that way in order to give that value. But do you know how they got in that funnel? A $20 book. Yeah. A $20 book. He's losing money on the book, by the way. Yeah, we have to spend like $35 to get a sale. But he's losing money to get them in. And once they're in and they get that book in person, and you know, we have the bump offers like a $47 template library of like all the best contracts he has to sign different deals. So oftentimes the ones who take that bump, it helps. We're still losing a little bit on the offer, but that extra offer, that OTO, it's not really a bump, it's an OTO. It's like it goes with the book. So if you go through the book, you'll see he references these templates. You got the whole library, right? And so it helps there. But then once again, email and some retargeting ads later, we have a membership. We have a community of over 3,000 people. And we have hundreds of testimonials of people who make over 10K a month doing what we teach. And we got hundreds of people making a couple $1,000 a month, covering their mortgage, covering, you know, just results. Yeah. And then they see this community, and we take screenshots of like, hey, look, there's 3,000 people in this community, right? So by doing that, naturally people are like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And we tell people, if you can't make, you know, 3 times your money on this by the time, you know, in 3 months. So basically, if you sign up for 3 months, it's $600. If you can't make at least $1,800 doing the stuff that we outline and actually show us that you haven't been able to make some money with it, we'll give you your money back. All of it. And no one has refunded on that guarantee. We've only refunded people when they just blatantly complain. So we're just like,
you're always going to get some people that do that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But when we're talking about like someone actually went through it and didn't make anything, it hasn't been one person yet, right? So we're able to use that proof to bring them in. But once again, not a lot of offers. We're loss leader in the book. We have a template library just to make sure that we can cover some costs.
Yep.
Not many people take it. It's like it's like 15, 20% maybe. And then after that, it's just, you know, value. By the way, we got a community. The community has a lot of people in it. This is what they pay. And we don't run sales for the community. There is no time of the year you can get it at $97 a month or whatever. The only sale you can get is if you want to pay for the whole year. Mm-hmm. That's it. And if you pay for the whole year, you get like 20% off, right? And that only comes around certain times of the year. We never say when. We just never say when it's going to happen. Just one day you get an email. It's like, hey, you want to upgrade and save 20% on the upgrade? And then naturally people are like, hell yeah, because they've already been in it for a while and they want to save some money.
Yeah. Yep. Amazing.
But we keep it simple. I see too many offers where it's like 9 different things in the funnel. And it's like, dude, by the time they get to the end, they've already consumed too much. That's why they're not going to buy your $3,000 item or your $5,000 item.
I like the whole idea of like you say, going 5,000 versus 200, but there's longevity. If they opt in for the year, you're probably going to get that $5,000 anyway, right? So like, it's just all about getting them through the door. So that's very clever. I like it. And recurring payments are incredible. Money whilst you sleep, and also massive assets if you're trying to build and sell a company, you'll get a far bigger multiple for recurring revenue than you will for one-time purchase. So really, really cool. We've got a couple more questions, if that's okay. I'm not going to keep you too long. I know your time is very valuable. So let's get on to the last couple of questions. So someone's asked, what is the best place to learn about Instagram ads? So I know you mentioned that you're doing Facebook and Instagram. I know there's a lot of content about Facebook ads. Where can you learn about Instagram?
Instagram ads are basically Facebook ads on another platform.
And I know they're on the same
platform, it's very,
of course, yeah.
It's very, very simple. Now, funny enough, a lot of people don't give this attention. Like the Facebook blueprint has everything. Like if you want to learn the bare bones before testing, just go to the blueprint. It's free. Okay. There is no magic formula for Instagram other than the fact that videos that are less than a minute are where you want to be, right? A lot of video ads, 30 to 60 seconds. That's your secret sauce. The rest is copywriting and personality, right? The targeting and all that is the same as Facebook, right? So really, if you want to go to the blueprint, it would just free. Just go to Facebook Blueprint. There's a whole section on Instagram. That gives you the gist of what you need to know. The rest is all experience. It's just testing. But
talk a little bit about personality. That was interesting.
Yeah. So personality being like not a lot of people are good on camera. We know this for a fact, right? I have been on enough interviews and webinars and talked to people in person that I know how to convey a message without, BSing my way through it. Like I actually know what I'm saying. I know how to convey it where people can be like, oh, he's a trustworthy person. And so, a lot of people, when they're doing any sort of video, they come off as almost like a robot. Think about like a news anchor. They can't turn it off. They don't know how to turn it off. It's like they're always in news anchor mode. So imagine if you're doing that same thing on your video, people are going to go, he's scripted or he's reading or whatever. So when we're talking about personality, like I'm not jumping on camera with a stern face. I'm smiling. I'm talking about this thing. I'm not flashing no car. I have a wall behind me. There's no ClickFunnels awards. There's none of that. I'm just talking. But what I'm telling you is, look, I actually do this. I know what I'm talking about. I have the proof to back it up, and I want to show it to you. Why do I want to show it to you? Because I've been doing this for so long that I know tons of people who've asked me for this information. By the way, and the reason why I say that last part, you're going to get comments that say, if you're making so much money from it, why are you telling me about it? Because I want to. End of story, right? Just get the things out there and showcase your real personality. Hey, if you're a type of person that likes to curse and tell people how you really feel, do it. Right. That's you, right? Yep. So for me, surprised I haven't cursed more, but I'll curse on camera. I'll tell people like it is, and it's whatever, because that is me. So if they can align with your personality, they're going to buy from you. That's why I know that whenever the day is that I drop a course, people are going to buy it because they're like, you know what? He's been nothing but real for over 10 years. And he finally decided to just share something, right? So that's why I say lead with personality.
Makes complete sense. Great point. And you've been nothing but real on this interview, which again tees me up to our final section of how can people get in touch with you? How can people work with you? What are you guys offering right now?
So obviously Facebook, I'm on there all day. Same thing with Instagram. So you can find me facebook.com/SCHLOSSY, Schlossy. That's how you can find me on Facebook. On Instagram, it's David M. Schloss. Not trying to brag, both have blue checks. That's how you know it's me. There are other people with my name. Just wanted to make that clear. Other than that, offer-wise, we do ad management and we do consulting. Ad management, if you're going to contact me about that, just be prepared that I'm going to throw numbers at you, and you got to spend at least $200 a day. So that's $6K a month. You're not spending $6K a month. Consulting is the way to go. That's the way that I look at it. I could tell you how to get to that point. If you spend much more than that and you still want consulting, that's fine. That means you're at a point of scale. I'll help you break through. If you don't want to deal with any of it, let us handle it. And my team is awesome. I've taught all of them myself. They know all of my processes. And yes, I still touch the ad accounts. So you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it's either ad management or consulting. No course yet. Course has actually been in the works forever, but Facebook likes to change everything. So every time they do that, it takes another month. But we will have something out in the fall because it's a matter of time.
Amazing. Love it. Thank you so much for all your insights and amazing answers, and for giving us an hour here live in the lab. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you go to go to landingpagelab.com. Make sure you hit that subscription button. And most importantly, make sure you check out David. I've known him for a long time. He really does practice what he preaches. So hit him up if you need some help on Facebook. Thanks again, guys. And we'll see you soon live in the lab once more. Cheers.